how up to the universe. Let go of the how, but just be committed and clear to the what. When we're committed to the what, the how becomes obvious. When we understand the final destination, the path becomes clear. We can't know that path until we understand where it's all coming to. Welcome to Isn't That Poetic, the series where three writers sit down to explore your questions about relationships, self-fulfillment, and healing. I'm Brianna.
I'm Bianca. And I'm Jacqueline.
You can follow us on social media and find our work through the description box in this episode. Whether you're watching our taped conversation on YouTube or Facebook, or streaming this as a podcast, thank you for being here. Follow Isn't That Poetic on Instagram and Twitter for exclusive updates, behind-the-scenes content, and opportunities to submit topics to us to unpack on future episodes. Today we are talking about something that is absolutely near and dear to my heart, and it is not just our potential, but why we hold ourselves back from actualizing that potential. And I know that we have privately discussed this so many times, so I'm going to say it to you. Within every one of us is a seed of potential. And when that seed is watered and when it is nurtured and when it is put in an environment in which it can grow, it becomes something bigger than us and yet so essentially a part of us, it is the meaning and purpose of our lives. But in the yin and yang and balance of the world, for every bit of forward movement, we are met with an equal and opposite amount of resistance. This is what happens in the process of actualizing our potential. And so our purposes in life often speak to us through discomfort. They often come to us through the pain and the hurt. It's very rare for us to just wake up one day and be like, okay, I'm meant to do something beautiful and meaningful. Right, we don't wake up and we think, I'm ready to just pursue it, but we know it deep down. And people say it in an offhand way all of the time. You can seriously talk to anyone and say, if you had to guess, like, what would you think you're supposed to be doing with your life? I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with people. They're like, oh, I meant to move to Bali and become a self-love coach. And I'm actually referencing like a friend who's probably like watching this right now. Love you, Tash. But that people say that all the time. But when it comes time to actually take action and create it in the world, we resist and hold back. And I know that we are self-sabotage 100%. I know you are familiar with Gay Hendricks' upper limit. We are only accustomed to a certain degree of happiness and joy and meaning in our lives. And when things start to exceed that, we sabotage it back to a place that we are comfortable. It's a consistent breaking of those upper limits that is what gets us to where we are supposed to be. I always say the big leap, it's not just one leap, it is 1,000 leaps in succession of one another. But we all have this seed of potential, and this is what's so important, it's a seed. It is not an actualized thing just yet. It takes care and attention and time to grow it into something bigger than us. There's no world in which when I was younger and struggling with severe mental illness and so incredibly lost that I ever thought I'd be sitting here today talking about something like this. But this is what that seed does. It calls to us in. So I really want to start by asking you both, was there ever a moment in your life that you knew you were living out your highest potential? And what did that feel like for you?
I would love to answer that first because it feels like right now, I feel like if I didn't recognize that seed and take care of myself and give it permission to grow, I wouldn't be sitting here at this table with both of you recording this and having this conversation. And I think I know there were definitely moments where I was living not at my potential, and it was dark and it was difficult. And until I made the decision that no, I'm ready to move forward, I am listening to my innermost truth, I'm ready to start growing.
So it's like the conscious decision you made.
Yeah.
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 What about you?
For me, I have talked about this on so many occasions, and both of you know my story just in regards to I grew up my whole life thinking that I was going to do one very specific thing. I had always wanted to help people. Love pours out of me like it is this extension of myself, and I wanted to give that to the world. And I convinced myself and told myself, based on the way I grew up and circumstances that I had modeled towards me, I convinced myself that I had to do a very specific thing in order to succeed in a very specific way, and that was my destiny, and that is how I was going to put my heart out into the world. I told myself I was going to be a doctor. I got a scholarship. I started studying science. I went to university. I was taking every step forward that I thought was going to fulfill me and make me the happiest, sunniest version of myself. And I was the most depressed. I was deeply saddened in the world. And every single day I woke up and I felt like I didn't know myself. Now I understand it's because I wasn't actually listening to myself. I was staying comfortable. Science was very easy for me. This concept of my life that I had been working towards for so long, I couldn't ever think about setting it down. No, that's what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. When I finally set it down, when I finally said, this is not me, and I have to be okay with that, and I will figure out where I'm meant to be, but this is not me right now, that is when so many opportunities started coming to me. That is when writing came to me. That is when I had an article go viral. The next day I had a book contract. I had a freelance writing contract. And now I'm putting my heart out into the world and living my highest potential. And every single day I wake up and I feel like I know myself. And that is exactly what you were talking about. That is me in my moment of clarity and deep understanding.
I don't know if we've ever talked about this or you know this, but when I was a little girl, I would say to my mom, like, every day, Mom, I have to help people. I have to help people. And she always tells people that I would be in the family room on the computer looking up like college courses, because I was like 8 to 10, like being like, I have to know my major, I need to know what I'm doing.
Same.
Because I didn't understand that, like, how helping could come through your unique gifts.
Yep.
I thought that, like, so similar to you, I would think like I would need to be a doctor, but it turns out that I'm not smart in that way, it turns out. So it was actually when I realized that, like, writing was, and reading was something I felt so called to, when I decided to pursue that. I wanted to actually be an editor, and when I went to college, I actually remember a moment where I thought I had actually given up on that purpose, and I said, you know what, I'll figure it out later, but all I know right now is that this is the path for me, and I don't know if it's ever going to help anyone, but, like, I didn't even care at that point, because it was just what was right for me. It's what felt right. It came naturally to me.
Honest.
It felt it was just what my path was. But I, in that moment, had no clue how, like, writing could, like, help people. Do you know what I mean? Like, those two things didn't come, because you would think, like, journalism, that, you know what I mean? So it just, these two things had never come together. It wasn't until later, until I trusted that unique imprint that was mine, that the purpose that was mine came through it. Mm-hmm. And this is why I believe that when it comes to finding your purpose, your first assignment is you.
I love that.
Your first assignment is you, and your first purpose is you. And I think that when we become the most actualized versions of ourselves, it's like an instrument through which the music can play, or like a faucet through which the water can run. I don't know what these metaphors are. But what I'm saying is that when the faucet's clogged, it can't come through. And the instrument's not tuned, the music can't be played.
Yeah.
We have to work on this first. You don't have to be perfect, but it needs to be developed enough. And if this isn't in place, there's not really too much we can do for others. Yeah. And I feel that there are so many people who have this urge or this feeling inside of them, like, I'm meant to help or serve or connect or create something beautiful for this world. And I think that we tend to look at all the ways that we're, like, inadequate or unfit to do it, and maybe ways that we've just known about our whole lives. But what I want to say is that I think it's through your unique talents and gifts, even if you can't see the correlation just yet, that's how you do what you were born to do. My mother's a teacher, and she always, like, I don't know how to help people. I'm like, Mom, you've taught, like, thousands of kids how to read. What are you talking about? Like, that's a profound purpose, beautiful. Right? Yeah. Like, I'm like, how do you not see that? But she's like, oh, it's hard for me to see it. And it's like, great, but you knew since 5th grade that was your gift, and that's what you were meant to do. And it's like, well, right, and other people find it later in life. But it's
and one thing I would like to mention is I think we can have multiple purposes throughout our life.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Different seasons call for different purposes, and sometimes we all want to say something.
Deep breathing. I'm like, it's so neat. Yes, thank you for saying that, because yes. We look for a purpose in our job when it is so much bigger than that. Our purpose is a relationship we have to someone. Sometimes it's just being present. Sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time. We don't even know that we are. I also think purpose evolves. You know what I mean? What our purpose was, I think from day to day, I think I had like 5 purposes today. I think all of us do. And so I think that we're looking for this like clear identity of like, I do this one thing and that's my purpose. And it's like, it is so much bigger than that. And also not always for you to know in that moment. You are living out your purpose whether you know what it is or not. I know that for sure. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Like you don't maybe know how it's all going to work out or where it's going, but if you are following the path that is yours and the journey that is yours and the healing and the growth and whatever else that is yours, you are on your path. And I think in the end, it really has an invisible ripple effect on everyone around you, even if you can't see it or know it.
And something that I thought when you were talking about that is with purpose comes a peace. If there's not peace, it's not aligned with the journey that you're meant to take.
You will know.
Yes. You will know.
You will know.
Yes.
It is within you, and I think it's okay to not know your purpose. I want to take it back a little bit in my story. 5-second version. I thought I had one, kind of like Bianca and yourself, I thought I had one version of my life, that I had this idea of what I was supposed to do, but it was unhealthy for me, and it didn't work out, and it was like the universe took it away from me through different circumstances, but I was in a state of thinking I knew my purpose. I thought I was going to go to college and play volleyball and also do something in the medical field. And I went through a series.
All 3 of us
yes,
thought that.
I think a lot of people are feeling this as well. You think you know what you're going to do. And I was comparing myself and competing with so many other people in my high school even. It was a small community and everyone did this. And I thought I was supposed to follow this timeline that everyone else was following. And it was almost like the universe ripped me out under what I thought I was supposed to do. And I was left in my bedroom struggling with depression. And I started a blog called Finding My Verse. And I made a definition of verse as a purpose, a passion, a path, an absolute fulfiller of life. I was desperately seeking what my purpose was. And I went through a series of decisions of what I was supposed to do to take care of myself, to heal from what I was going through. And I made this decision that sounded probably crazy to a lot of people in the community, but I felt a peace with my parents when we were discussing it. And that's why I brought up the peace, because no matter how quote unquote crazy, and I think we tell ourselves we're crazy so often, but we're not, we're human. And we really do within us know what's best for us. We know that there's a peace that comes with understanding the choices that we're making to follow are the right decisions. And if there's not that peace, it's not for you. And I think whether, and kind of like Brianna said, you might not know where it's leading you, but there's something within you that knows it's the right thing, so follow it. Follow it and trust that peace.
Yeah, I always say you have 2 worlds. You have the outside world and you have the internal world within you. And who you are when you are alone with your mind, when you are about to fall asleep at night, who you are in that moment is a very honest version of yourself, because you're alone and you feel like you can be your truest, authentic self. Who you are outwardly, who you are in this world, doesn't match that. And if it doesn't match, how can we bridge the distance between those 2 worlds, between who you want to be, what you want to be, what you want to feel in this life? Are you outwardly projecting that, or is it just something that's internalized? And I think often a lot of people who are working through healing, or a lot of people who are trying to figure themselves out, there's a large gap, there is a large distance between who they are on the inside and who they allow themselves and give themselves the permission to be on the outside. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we ensure that those 2 worlds are so close together that your outside version of yourself is the exact same mirror as your internal, most authentic self? How do we get there?
I think that's what self-actualization is. Like, I think that's the perfect definition. That's exactly it. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. A tool that's worked for me so well over the years is visualizing and connecting with my highest potential future selves. Because you can see them at different times. And what's funny is that they evolve over time. The person you would have saw when you were at one place changes. Your future changes as you change. But it wasn't until I did that for the first few times that my world was really like blown open to like what I could be. And again, I think what's special about it is, and for anyone listening who would maybe want to do it themselves, I did it in meditation, where I just imagined kind of walking into a room and sitting down across from a chair. I did it once when I was like 22, and I saw my 25-year-old self, and she gave me like a list of instructions. She's like, break up with this person, do this, do this, do this, do this, and I did it. And like I followed my highest potential future self's instructions for years. But then one day, after I'd been on the journey for long enough, this older woman with long gray hair started coming to me and said, "You're going to write poetry." And I had never even like thought about this before. Okay, like I was insecure enough about like writing anything, like let alone something as like emotional and like deep as that. And then like through that, I felt. Do you ever feel as though it's like a lightning strike? Like I can't explain it any other way. It's almost like I'm in an altered state of consciousness when it's happening. I think it's this very intense connection with something greater that's being grounded. I really personally believe that books exist in the ethers and we volunteer to bring them to life. And we're creating something that's already done. So I think we were talking about this yesterday. Before a book, I like imagine it in my hands. I can see what it feels like, and I can see what it feels like to other people. And then I just start putting the pieces together of what it's supposed to be. But it's that almost like effortless flow that, again, the instrument has to be tuned to get there. We cannot just wake up and do it. There's a really famous quote about writing that's like, if it's not like lightning, don't do it. And I actually really, really, really agree with that. Anytime I've not liked something I've done, it's because I forced it. It was because I was not coming from a place of authentic flow. It was because I was trying to be something that I wasn't. And I always say this about like writer's block. I'm like, you are trying to write something where you don't know what you're trying to say, or you're trying to say it in a way that is too far removed from the way you naturally think and speak. And when we do that, we're getting disconnected from our essential purpose and potential, because it is so unique to us. Do you know what I mean?
I have goosebumps right now, because that is such a deep part of why I am here today, why I have written books. So I tried to write. I told myself, I do want to be a writer. I had convinced myself for so many years that wasn't a tangible thing due to, I think a lot of people have been told artists, the starving artist, there's that stereotype, right? And so I did grow up being like doctor, lawyer, banker, which are all necessary and very, very deeply needed in this world. But I never really gave myself permission to believe that writing could be a form of sustenance. And I never saw writing or putting my heart and my creativity into the world as a form of success. And I learned that it was. But when I started making changes in my life, when I started saying I'm a writer, I was also trying to box myself into what I thought that had to be. So I started writing articles and submitting them. Those articles were not genuine extensions of what I was feeling. I was still playing it safe, and I was still extremely terrified. And so I wasn't being honest, and that translated so deeply onto paper. All those articles got rejected. Then I went on a trip, I fell in love, I got my heart absolutely smashed open, like broken open to the point where I'm flying back from London, bawling my eyes out, and I pull out a pen and I just start writing this article. And I bring it home, I recite it to my friend, she starts bawling her eyes out, and she's like, you have to submit that to the company that you had been submitting your other articles to, because I feel like this is actually your voice. I feel like you broke your voice open. I submitted that article to Thought Catalog, who had rejected my articles before. It was accepted, it went viral overnight, and here I am.
Wow. That is so beautiful. That is incredible. I didn't even know that. And it's proof to show that when you lean in to the feeling that, okay, this feels like purpose, it might be possible, and you start leaning into it, you start to notice the right people coming into your life without you doing anything.
Yes.
And the right circumstances starting to unfold without you doing anything. And that makes me come up with a question that I'm thinking, and I would love to hear what you both have to say. Change is terrifying. With purpose, you're stepping a toe forward into something that is changing your life. How do you lean into that change and not let the fear overcome you?
I honestly think I do let it overcome me sometimes, is the honest answer. But I think
feel it, but you do it anyway.
It's so
that's
normal
it.
too.
Yeah, that's
you
it.
feel the fear, but you do it anyways. And it is within that bravery and that courage that you push yourself forward and you become stronger.
Yes. So, beautiful question. And to bring it back to why do we resist our potential?
Exactly.
I honestly think it is because we are afraid to change. We are afraid to be different than other people have perceived us before. We are afraid to do something and walk a path, kind of trailblaze something that hasn't quite exactly existed the way that we were meant to create it. I think we're afraid to be seen. But more than anything, I think we are afraid of what is past our upper limits. I think we are afraid of this unknown, and it's like if I get up there so high and feel so good, it almost seems like the potential for something to knock me down is also greater, but I do not think that is true. I do not think that is true. I think the more good, positive things you have in your life, the stronger you become, not the more vulnerable. I think the opposite is true. But I honestly think we resist it mostly because of the fear of how we will be perceived.
You know what is so unbelievable? I used to be that way. I didn't want to try because I was afraid of being judged. And judgment is a whole other topic that we can get into, but I think it really is a catalyst to self-sabotage. When we feel like we are potentially going to be judged, we might not put ourselves out there. We might not allow ourselves to be our full, true selves. And then we also know that when we are repressing parts of ourselves, the universe can't give us what is meant to find us because we will not be ready, receptive, or open to it. However, so many points in history has been made in so many ways due to people finding their purpose or believing in something so deeply despite the way the world has looked at and judged that thing. History, the rocket ship was created by a man who was told that he was absolutely insane. They put him into a mental asylum. He created the idea of a rocket going into space. They told him it was impossible. Look what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So you have to believe in impossibility. And it's very difficult to believe in impossibility because not only do you have internal noise, there's also a lot of external noise, a lot of people who do not understand your vision because a vision that vision has never existed in this world. But that's how we drive ourselves forward. You cannot use old maps to get to new destinations. You have to create a new map yourself.
That is so interesting because that segues right into what I was about to say, which is
we're on an energetic wavelength here.
I was about to say almost the exact same thing. I was like, over the years, something that I've done is I use visualization as my main technique. And the more I go into that every single day, and I use different methods of doing that, different affirmations, writing, whatever I'm doing. I draw a lot. I will draw pictures of my self doing certain things. I think I showed you girls, I made a playlist. Do you know what I mean? It was for this moment. Do you know what I mean? And
I love seeing that.
And I listen to it and I pretend that moment has come. And these are all, and I get to the point where the vision feels more real to me than what exists right now. And that's when I start getting this feeling of, I don't care. I don't care if it's bad. I don't care if people don't like it. I don't care if I am judged. I am so sure, because of just the repetition of me coming back to this vision and knowing what it could do for myself and others, I am so sure I am willing to incur the risk to make it manifest. And I also follow my own instinct, and I really believe that our purpose first changes us. And this is very true with art. I think that it has to create alchemy in you first.
Yep.
When I was writing The Mountain Is You, I wrote it 3 or 4 times before it was finished. I went back and started from the beginning again. And I understand now that the reason I was is because I was not over my self-sabotaging behaviors. And are we ever really over them? No, I think they always play a role in our lives forever, but I do think there's a really distinct difference between when our lives are being actively held back in significant ways by self-sabotage, and we've moved out of the way and we are moving forward even though we are still afraid or having those thoughts and feelings. And a lot of it, honestly, a lot of it is just organizing our feelings, getting clear about what we want our future to be. People genuinely lack direction, and the reason why is because nobody else can give it to you. Do you know what I mean? Not in a real way. It's like your life is yours,
You have to do it for yourself.
You have to take the ownership of it to say, I'm going to create a vision of what would be most in alignment, and then through some magical, mysterious, sparkling starlight, something beautiful will come through. Whenever I've been writing, I'm honestly not thinking right away how it will help other people. I am thinking, I used it as like a therapeutic tool for so long. I used it as like, okay, I need to write this to change the way that I think and change the way that I feel. Or I want to create something so beautiful, it moves me to my core. It is only when I come at it from that place of me being my first assignment, my first responsibility, I am my own child, you know what I mean? I need to parent myself, like all of that. That's when it's something powerful for other people. I think when we try to go in it like, oh, I just want to help other people without first helping ourselves,
doesn't work.
There's a piece that gets missing in there somehow, where it's not effective. And also I think it becomes forced intense.
Yep.
It becomes in flow when I sit down personally and I'm like, this book will change my life. And if it doesn't help anyone else, like I accept that, but it first must change mine. I am my own first project, you know?
So beautiful. That is
I
so
absolutely
poetic.
love that.
And I always wonder within my own life and with the way that my mind tends to go to believing in other people more than I believe in myself, and I judge myself more than people are actually judging me. I hold myself back, and that's what this whole conversation is about. And I'm like, why? Why do I keep falling into that pattern of holding myself back and not believing in myself?
There was an exercise years ago that a friend told me about, and I did. We should actually all do it, and everyone listening, you should do it at home too. We should do it for each other. Now I just remembered it. We should do it tonight, and I'm not even kidding. So you're going to take a piece of paper, and you're going to write down everything you see about your friend. And you can only do this with someone who you really love and trust, of course. So like what I would write down about you and you, what I see in you, what I believe about you, what I think your potential is. Do you know what I mean? How I see you. My friend and I exchanged. My jaw was on the floor. And she was like, I just would never say it, but I see all of this. I was like, I didn't know. I don't see it in myself. She was like, well, I didn't see any of this in myself either. But it's almost like you need someone close to you sometimes to say to you, this is everything that maybe you can't see, but I can see. And I call it speaking greatness over someone's life. There have been times in my life where someone has spoken greatness over my life when I was at my lowest place ever. And a friend many years ago was like, I think you're going to do something great one day. I forget what the exact language was. But it was the very first time anyone had ever said anything like that to me. So it really stuck with me because there was that little seed inside of me that said, I think that could be true. Not, I know for sure it's true, but I am willing to say maybe that could be true. But I think it's fear. I genuinely think we get suffocated under the weight of our own fear of what other people will think, when being our most authentic and empowered selves is like the best thing we could do. Like that makes us more loved. Do you know what I mean?
And we've been given so many checklists and timelines, and we've been told you go to school, you do this, you do this, you do this, and we do tend to live our lives like that in a very forward moving direction, check, 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 ticking off all of the boxes. So we've kind of been primed to believe that there is a perfect time for certain things to happen in your life. You go to school, then you get the job, then you fall in love, then you start a family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's never a perfect time for anything to occur in our lives. There's never a perfect time to find secure, big, deep, scary, challenging love. There's never a perfect time to admit to yourself that maybe you haven't been living your purpose, that maybe it's time to change. There's never a perfect time to really claim and embrace the things that are going to really shake shit up, because that's terrifying.
People say that about kids all the time. It's like, you're never ready, you just have to do it.
You just have to do it. You just have to do it. And we can convince ourselves, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. It's never gonna happen. You will never be 100% ready to have your life change. You just have to believe what you're moving towards and believe that it is meant for you. That's all you can do.
There have been many times where I don't believe I have a purpose, and I've been in that low moment where I believe I don't have a place here, I don't have a purpose here, and that was just lies. We have to listen to the truth within us. We can't listen to the lie. We all have a purpose. We all have a very unique purpose and imprint and fingerprint that we leave on this world. Every one of us has a heart that's like no other heart.
I mean, just every person we know and touch, I think relationships are a big part of our individual life purposes.
Definitely.
And the people that we connect with and are there for, how we shape and shift and change each other. I think that the roles we play for other people and our families and our partners and our friends, I think that's a huge one as well. And I feel like sometimes that's something we can hold on to when we're totally defeated and cannot believe that there's any purpose for us being here. It's like, could you believe for one moment, maybe, are you willing to consider that part of your purpose is being a friend or a daughter or a mother or whatever that is?
And beautiful.
And could you start there?
It's not this big all-consuming thing.
Right.
Purpose, there's little things in every day.
Yes.
Your purpose that day might just be making a stranger smile,
yes.
or complimenting someone, or complimenting yourself, or doing something for yourself that makes you feel joy.
It's not so beyond us, it's within us.
Yes.
It's however we show up each day. It's all around us, and we feel it when we're doing it. We really do. We can sense it because it's just this little tingle inside that we're, and you know it, and you know when it's happening.
I know that feeling well.
It's a warmth and it's an energy.
Yeah.
It's a purpose and it's an energy that nothing else feels like it. It's a warmth.
It is. That's exactly what it feels like. And it's like love. It's how we express and connect our love and the forms with which we do that. And I think the things that we do because we think they're purposeful, but without love, are not purposeful.
Yep.
And our purpose 100%. And our potential, we're kind of using these words interchangeably, but I actually do think they're like deeply married to one another. Do you know what I mean? Our latent potential is also our purpose. But I think that there are a lot of people who know deep down that there is something else they are supposed to be doing, whether it is big or whether it is small. I know that I've been almost consumed by this feeling so many times in my life. I'm like, okay, this is calling me like nothing else ever has in my life. And every single time I was right. When I look back now, every time I was right. There was something calling, and I couldn't see it until years later, and I didn't know how or when or where, but I was right about that intense impulse that honestly did tend to arise out of discomfort, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Yeah.
God has a sense of humor. It's almost like it gets to a point where it's like, how do you not hear me?
How do you not see this?
Why are you not listening? And sometimes you get pushed into a corner, and you get to that place where you're laying on the ground, and you're like, what the heck is going on in my life? And then when you listen to that and you trust it, you start to lean into it and change everything around you. And I think a lot of times we make it so complicated. It gets so overwhelming to sit there and be asking if you're in high school, I was going to counselors, like, what am I supposed to do with my life?
Yeah.
And there's this system that has ingrained into us that it's this timeline, like Bianca had mentioned, that really connected to me, because every single soul has its own timeline, and it's different for everyone. And I think it's okay to test out different things that make you happy and just see which one leads to something bigger in your life.
It's so much trial and error.
Yeah.
You don't know until you try. I want to say also, I think a good place to start is the opposite of like your fears. Sometimes it's really hard for us to grasp, like, what do I love or what I feel passionate about? Sometimes we can't get clear on that. So it's like, but most people can usually get clear on their negative feelings. So I feel like that's probably a place to start. What is the opposite of what I fear? I fear being alone. Okay, great, your purpose is connection. I fear, do you know what I mean? So we can start with like, what's the opposite of this like heaviness that I feel? What would be creating the opposite of that? And also what I was gonna say before is, the universe is waiting on our readiness. We are not waiting for other things to like come into our lives at some perfect time. The universe is waiting on us. It is waiting for us to be ready, and it is okay if that takes time. But just know, there is no point in the timeline when you get there and you're like, okay, every box has been checked and I'm totally ready to ascend.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You know why? Because while you're checking off those boxes, while you're doing the very concrete societal things that we have been told we have to do, the job, the family, whatever it is, the purpose, what we've boxed that into, you're also dealing with the ways that life challenges you and weathers you into a different kind of person. And that's why I love how you talk about how purpose can change over seasons, how it can be quite small, how it can be quite large, how it can exist in the light and it can exist in the dark. When you go through something like heartbreak, it completely breaks you open. When you lose someone, when you're grieving, it changes you as a person, and you are internally changed at that point. The way that you see the world is changed at that point. And so the way that you can authentically put yourself into the world might no longer align with the boxes that you've ticked or what you have created, the pathway you've created for yourself. And you have to give yourself permission to create a new path. You have to give yourself permission to stop staring down that one road and to start looking in other directions, because that is usually where you will find the kind of things that will surprise you and change your life in ways that you might have never been, you might not have ever believed that they could happen for you, because you just, your brain just wasn't the same brain that you had now. Does that make sense? You perceive the world differently.
You can commit to the what, but not always the how. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, I know that I'm meant for true love, but how that comes to me and through what person, maybe I'm wrong about that. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it doesn't come through me exactly the way I thought it would, but it doesn't mean that I'm not meant for that connection. I know that I'm meant to connect with other people in a profound way. Maybe the first way you started, the first job you had, whatever your journey is. Even if leave the how up to the universe. Mm-hmm. Let go of the how, but just be committed and clear to the what. When we're committed to the what, the how becomes obvious. When we understand the final destination, the path becomes clear. We can't know that path until we understand where it's all coming to, which is why, to bring it back to the highest potential future self, that was truly my breakthrough moment. I had no idea where things were headed. It wasn't until I consulted what I believe is my subconscious mind, really tapping into what I subconsciously know is my potential and practicing visualizing that. It wasn't until I could get there that I could say, okay, these are the steps that need to happen. And it's important that we do get there, because there is also the very genuine risk that we can go our entire lives with all of this passing us by.
And that makes me think of regret and forgiving yourself for not trusting your instincts sooner. I've had to go through, it's almost like, I don't know if either of you have gone through a grieving process of your past, where you thought one thing and you just kept ignoring that gut instinct, and you look back now and you know it was your gut speaking to you, but you spent years, for me at least it was years, of ignoring that gut. And I went through, one, a grieving process of letting go what I thought was meant to be, and two, forgiving myself for not listening sooner.
The beautiful, go on. Nope. We both opened our mouths like, yes. Something that I have always said in just regards to being kind to yourself and gentle with yourself and just tender with your own soul and your journey is that you don't have to regret who you were in the past, and you don't have to regret all of the times you let yourself down. Mm-hmm. You have to forgive yourself for all of those past versions of yourself that never aligned, that never came to fruition. But you know what you can celebrate? You might not have been able to fix things or save yourself or heal back then, but here you are now, and you got there eventually. Be proud of the way that you walked your journey. Be proud of the fact that you are here now. So if you're upset with yourself for staying longer than you should have, you should be so damn proud that you actually had the courage to leave at the point that you left. If you are so upset that you wasted so many years of your life in a job that you deep down hated, and now you're out of that, and now you're doing something that you absolutely love, be proud of yourself and celebrate the fact that you got out. Because unfortunately, and I hope this doesn't sound negative, it is just the truth, a lot of human beings don't make it there. A lot of human beings stay very safe and very settled, and they push it down and push it down and push it down and push it down until they can no longer deny it, but then it has passed. It has passed. I don't think it's ever too late for you. I will say that until my very last breath. However, I do think that you have to have the courage to do the hard things, and that's how you're going to push yourself forward. And there are people and there are human beings and there are souls that cannot get out of those cycles of self-sabotage to the point where their highest potential self is waiting.
And I totally hear what you're saying, which is that our time here is limited. It is limited, and it's rapidly passing us by, and we cannot get it back. My husband always says that. He's like, time is the most valuable thing in the world. We cannot get any back. We have what we have. We don't know how much we have. And we have to do with it what we can when we know to do it. But you're right that most people go their whole lives without that. And it's a very fortunate thing to have woken up to it and to have the courage to step forward, to leap, to go against the grain, to carve your own path. I think that we're in a time in the world right now where many people are waking up to this and saying no more. It's time to pivot. It's time to be the pivot characters. It's time for everything after us to be different. I think every generation that is true. But don't you think that right this moment feels even more acute?
Absolutely, 100%. There's something in the air. We've grown collectively over the last year and a half within itself so much. We've been challenged. We've been really forced to sit with ourselves as well, which is why I think so many people are healing and are, meeting that higher potential, or at least knowing and believing a little more in the fact that it exists, because the world kind of said everyone is sitting with themselves. We're all sitting in ourselves, and we're sitting with our heart, like literally physically we were locked down, like externally and internally. Then we had to face ourselves.
And I'm wondering how many people were conscious of that. I was. Do you know what I mean? I was like, this is that time that and I saw so many people in my own life, in my life as well, make these big changes.
Huge life changes. Because
they had that moment of stillness and silence. I also want to say, because I think it would be I would have loved to hear this years ago, so I want to say it. A lot of my purpose and coming into it, which I do feel like I'm not fully walking in it, but more than I ever have, was very practical things. So like for me, becoming my highest potential self was a lot of like being organized, being healthier, being kinder, being less judgmental. And I started with the most basic stuff just immediately in my own life. And I think that sometimes these ideas can feel so mystical and beyond us. It's really hard to know where to start. And so I would say start in your living room, start in your bedroom, start at your job, start when you wake up in the morning. Start creating these micro shifts. I'm telling you, getting like organized and like having a clean space and taking care of myself, there was nothing that changed me more. It freed up my time and my space and my energy for me to step forward as the person I want to be. And that's the other thing, that when we are not the person we want to be, it is extremely difficult for us to step forward, because it's like, I'm not ready yet. And it's like, okay, well, you are getting yourself ready. You're not waiting for something else to show up. It's been a revelation over like however many years of my career too. Yeah. I always thought that these things just come to you, and I did eventually figure out you have to go after all of them. Yeah. Even the things you think other people just get, it's like they have probably actually also gone for it in some way.
Yeah. And oftentimes, at least in my life, pain has led to purpose. And you said the word bedroom, and that brought me back to my bedroom, where if I didn't feel those pains while I was alone in my bedroom, I wouldn't have started writing. And writing was a big part of my therapy, more so than I think anything else, honestly. I think sitting alone with my thoughts and letting that pain go somewhere led me to find my purpose. It opened my heart to share and to have that feeling of wanting to help someone else. Of me writing, and that was just my thing. Words were just my thing of feeling like I had a purpose. When I would share something and I got a message that someone said, wow, that made me feel so much less alone, that's when I felt purpose.
Yeah.
And connection, purpose is connection. You need to feel validated. It's okay. We need other humans to survive, and we deserve validation from other people.
I absolutely agree. Don't you also feel like we intuitively know when we have more potential? Even in those moments, didn't you always sense, like, you always know it? And I think for anyone listening, you know You know how much there is. You know what you're supposed to be doing.
It's hard to deny.
It's hard to deny.
Hard to
you
deny,
know it would
yeah,
change
exactly.
everything.
Yep.
You know what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
And it's just about you coming out of denial of that. But
It's self-respect.
Self-respect.
Respect yourself enough to, I've always said this, I think one of the biggest forms of self-care is self-respect. We can have reactive self-care where we're not respecting ourselves and we're not doing the things that might be boring and might be annoying, like doing our taxes or figuring out our finances or going to the gym. And we know those things are in the back of our mind. We know that they're frustrating us or they're adding a lot of stress to our life, but it's very easy to just push that stuff away and be like, another day, another day, another day. Having self-respect is saying, I know that in doing all of the things that I am avoiding and doing all of the things that are scary and that I don't want to do, I am changing myself. I am standing up for myself, and I am teaching myself that I am someone who deserves respect as well. You are the person who is going to teach yourself that. So when you show up for yourself, everything changes because you start changing your life. You start feeling worthy of everything that is going to happen and everything that you want in your life. No one else is going to give it to you. And it doesn't just exist in these big, looming, like incredible things, these moments that everyone like is aspiring to, like winning the award, having the New York Times bestseller book, et cetera. Sometimes it really is just saying, I'm getting out of bed today because I deserve to be here. Sometimes self-care is taking your vitamins. Sometimes self-respect is getting to the gym, even when you do not freaking want to, and moving your body and feeling that movement and feeling better after it. That is how you can take care of yourself. It does not have to be big. It is the smallest things. The smallest things, and it is you doing that for yourself because you love yourself.
I completely agree. It's like respecting yourself enough to pursue your potential, and I think when you do, then the world around you starts respecting you enough to meet you where you are.
Yeah.
And I think on that,
that just came over me like a wave.
You gotta do it.
And on that note, thank you all for listening to Isn't That Poetic? We appreciate you being part of this conversation and hope that you were able to take something meaningful for whatever chapter of your life you are navigating right now. You are not alone. If you'd like to connect with us further, you can find our socials, books, and more in the description box. Please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts so we can connect with more of you and grow our community. Until next time, we love you. You started that, and I just.
And we love ourselves.
And we love ourselves enough to pursue our potential. Don't cut that.